Greetings. Today, the Grumpy Gardener Show would like to discuss St. Johnswort, or Hupericum perforatum. That's at this time of the year when the days start to get short, especially as you live towards the poles, that people start to get this seasonally affected disorder where they begin to get gloomy. I mean, it's probably one good reason why we celebrate New Year's and Christmas, try to cheer everybody up a little bit. I know for sure that while living in the very far northern tier of the United States, that I was definitely affected by this. As the days would get shorter and shorter, it'd get harder and harder for me to put a smile on my face. Currently living here on the Tropic of Cancer, well, the day only varies about an hour and 20 minutes from June to December, so the effect is not as great, although it's still, we feel it here too. So human beings just don't like it when it gets dark all the time. Alaska, northern Canada, it's a terrible place for people sometimes in the winter. A lot of alcoholism. St. Johnswort, or Hupericum perforatum, is probably one of the most widely used and most effective herbal antidepressants. It's a bit of a different class than most of the other drugs that are pharmaceutically used for this. I have some experience earlier in life with several of the common antidepressants. During a rough patch in life and a divorce and blah blah blah, I did take some. They were prescribed to me, and I found all of them to have horrible side effects in my system, at least. Not everybody is so badly affected by them, but I never did find one that I could actually take. And over the years, though, I ran across St. Johnswort, and I was growing it in my garden in California. Now, I will forewarn you, there are several western states where this plant is listed as a noxious weed, and it can be. The thing can really spread. But in general, if treated carefully in the herb garden, it's really not a big problem. It's not hard to get it out if it happens to spread anyway. Not nearly as bad as mint. Yeah, and doing a little research on the plant, I found some interesting information. Traditionally, the plant had been used, say as far back as ancient Greece at least, to drive away evil spirits. Now, I find that kind of interesting, since if we have an evil spirit that plagues us in American society today, I would say it's probably depression. A tremendous amount of people suffer from this affliction. There are probably reasons why that is. We won't go into them today, that's for sure. But in Greek, the word hyper meant over, and the word ikon, or hyperikon, also meant apparition. So it meant it was a plant that had power over apparitions. You could drive away ghosts with the stuff. Kind of interesting that they felt that way about it, because, you know, I think for us today, a lot of the things that we are depressed over are very much phantoms. They don't really, usually quite actually exist within the current moment. And so its use as an antidepressant, though, surprised me when I did the research. I assumed this was fairly modern medicine. Yeah, the use as an antidepressant dates back to 1525. Paracelsus was an herbalist, physician. He used it to treat depression and melancholy. It's a long time back. We're dealing with over 500 years of history with this plant as an antidepressant. It is an monoamine oxidase, or an MAO inhibitor, which basically what it does is it keeps some of the brain chemicals that support us from breaking down. Now, it does it in different ways than the modern pharmaceuticals do. That is a little bit beyond me, and maybe probably beyond some of the viewers here too. And so I'm not going to bother to go into things that I don't understand. The plant also has antibacterial, antiviral, and anti-cancer properties. That's, again, a fairly long history of using it on eruptions and boils and different things on the skin. Right here I have a specimen of the plant. It's a rather unassuming looking thing. This is a baby in a pot. It grows very easily from seed, and seed can be found. It's not that hard to get. I purchased a seed for this off of Amazon. I had the plant in California. There, I believe I got the seed from J.L. Hudson, maybe. I don't quite recall the origins, but it's not that hard to find the seed if you do a search. And it's pretty easy to grow. The hardest part of growing Hupericum from seed is that the seedlings are very tiny. The seed's like dust and so on. So a little bit of a challenge there. But once this stuff gets going, it's pretty unstoppable. It's really a very, very strong and vital plant. As I said, there are places where this might be considered an invasive species. So, use a little caution with it. I don't usually like to advocate plants that do that. But this one is so effective because I personally do not have lingering issues with depression that are constant and so on. But like most people, I have bouts and I have times when the grumpy gardener gets even grumpier than usual. And typically it's a go-to for me. I will get up in the morning, I'll look in the mirror, and I'll go, "You're ugly. Everything stinks." And I go, I see. Bad night, Bill? And so I'll make a pot of coffee, and as soon as it's done, I'll kind of wander out there in the herb garden, and I'll pluck off some of this fresh from the plant. That's my favorite way to use it. I like that because I do believe that it works faster when you use the raw plant. The way I use it simply is I just take a shoot of the stuff about that long, put it in my mouth and start chewing it up like I was chewing tobacco. After it gets well masticated, then I'll usually, wash it down with my coffee or with a glass of water or some such thing. And the effect that I get from it is very rapid. I mean, if it's chewed fresh, I find that within 15 minutes of time that suddenly I just don't feel off balance anymore. It's like, sadness or depression for me is really feeling like I'm not centered on myself. I'm wandered off someplace in some strange corner of my mind, and I am just not where I really should be at the moment, with the moment. And it seems like it puts me there. I just find myself drifting back to center, and a lot of stuff that was bothering me just kind of becomes sort of irrelevant once that happens. I don't really get too many other side effects from it. Maybe there's a slight sensitivity to the chemicals in the leaves on my tongue, perhaps. There are some side effects that have to do with the plant that sometimes can involve skin rash, and so I do warn people who might be trying this for the first time, probably try some in the back of your hand or something, just to see what happens. And if you start to get a rash, maybe you don't want to touch this plant, because I know that happens to some people. It doesn't seem to happen to me, and any side effects, if there are any at all, other than the positive ones of feeling better, are much, much less than most of the pharmaceutical type antidepressants. I'm not a herbal medicine practitioner, nor am I a doctor. I am a gardener, so I hate to make recommendations towards people as far as their health is concerned, but since there are plants in the garden that seem to be really good for our health, I can speak from that aspect. And my suggestion is, if you have a strong, long-term problem with depression and the blues, you might want to go talk to a specialist and not try to self-medicate this thing. Let them help you with it. But on the other hand, if you're like me and just every once in a while life just ain't right and you just haven't got it together, you might want to try St. Johnswort. Because I do find it that is actually very effective. As I said, the herb is generally considered safe, okay, but there are allergic reactions that can occur. And so some of the allergic reactions that if you try it, you might want to watch for are sensitivity to light, skin rash, and inflamed mucous membranes. Well, compared to side effects on some things, if you ever listen to those pharmaceutical commercials on television, well, I'll tell you what, that ain't bad. But anyway, there are some, and so as far as common side effects, sometimes people experience dizziness, headache, tiredness, sleeplessness, dry mouth, skin sensitivity. The side effects apparently can increase with long-term use. So if you're using this thing every day, and you got a chronic depression problem, you might want to find another solution because it may build up on you and you may become sensitive to the plant. As I say, on the other hand, just using it every now and then to treat a periodic symptom, I think, is an excellent use of this herb. Now, there are drug interactions, and so if you take a lot of pharmaceuticals, again, you might want to be pretty careful about this. And so some of the common reactions are with antidepressants. So if you're already taking Prozac or some of these MAO inhibitors, then you probably should not use this herb. Apparently, it will make birth control pills less effective. And that's kind of interesting. It also is negative in the effect on certain cancer medications. Also with drugs like Valium and Xanax, there can be some negative reactions. It also doesn't work very well when you're using Motrin, Aleve, Advil, and any other drug that falls into that class, like ibuprofen. And there are some negative reactions with certain HIV drugs. It can also enhance the effect of blood thinners. So that's quite a list of drug interactions. Now, if you're not a person who takes a lot of drugs, well, then you probably have a very low risk of getting any problems with this at all. I myself take very few actual pharmaceuticals of any kind, although I do take saw palmetto extract for use with male prostrate issues. I find it to be a really, really good herbal alternative to most of the pharmaceuticals for that purpose. But it does thin blood, and I can tell that it thins blood. And so if you're using something like saw palmetto as an herb, and then you're also using St. Johnswort, you're really doubling up with the blood thinner thing. So you better put the knives in the cabinet for the day. Anywho, we got them down here in the nursery. You can usually find these around the country on various herb tables. I don't know how much cold the plant tolerates over the winter. So that would kind of be each and every one of you to experiment what its tolerance level is. It thrives in Hawaii. It thrived in California and was evergreen there. Chances are a little bit colder climates, it probably goes dormant and pops back out from the root because it's got a really strong root system underground. So I believe it's probably pretty hardy, but I do not have personal experience with growing it in cold climates. I wouldn't integrate it directly into your regular herb garden with your thyme and rosemary and oregano and such, because it really does get around. Once it gets up and growing, it's a pretty strong plant. Propagation is definitely far easier from cuttings, and oftentimes as it runs, it produces roots along the way, and if you grab it to confine it, you'll come up with pieces that have roots on the bottom, which are then very easy to regrow. But since most of us don't need very much of the stuff, it's probably easiest to grow it in a container or something, or keep it confined to small spaces so you don't have a whole lot of it running all over. I did use it as a ground cover under apples in California, and it was fairly effective mixed with alfalfa. Anyhow, the way I see it, all life is lost with your attitude if your attitude's gone sour. It's that simple. Life is all about the way you see it, and if everything looks gloomy, the world's gloomy. Others around you may be gloomy with you. Anything that can enhance your ability to see the world in a positive way is a really good thing. We all only have a little bit of time to spend here on planet Earth, and I do see a lot of people walk around just, life sucks. I hate the boss. Oh, I get so many bills. Oh, my life's terrible. Oh, man, one of the kids stopped shouting, on and on. There's so many of us that are really buggered by our existence. Well, one of these days you're going to hit the wall at the end of it, and all you've been doing is grumbling your whole life. You really missed out on a lot of the really good stuff that's here, because there is. But it takes a positive frame of reference really to be able to think that way. And so your universe is pretty much the product of the way you think about it. And so I think this is a pretty important herb. And like I say, it's better than so many other herbs that will sort of enhance your mood because of the way it does it. I don't find there's any euphoria or any elation or anything like that. It's really very much, for me, feels like just a balancing. That's all it feels like. I see my depressed states as being, Bill is out of balance again. I'm leaning one way. I no longer have the support of my brain chemicals to keep me centered and lifted anymore, because of something that's happened. Usually I got something going round and round in my head, and even telling myself a mantra, it still doesn't want to stop. It just keeps going. Well, the Hupericum seems to break that. It stops going around. That's all. Falls apart, and it really isn't there pestering you anymore. And so if you take the opportunity when that occurs, focus, move forward, and try to put a smile on your face, you'll have a much better day. So aloha. Thank you for watching that Grumpy Gardener's Medicine Show again today, and have a far less than grumpy day. Hang loose.